Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast. We have an amazing guest for you today. He's an industry thought leader, a tech innovator. He has a wealth of industry knowledge, especially on the lending side. His knowledge and expertise, people are highly sought after to hear him and see what he has to say. Please help me welcome Dan Catinella, Chief Lending Officer, a total expert. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. I'm happy to be here.
Well, it is great to have you. Dan, you've got a wealth of knowledge and expertise. Before we get into all the things we want to talk about today, tell our listeners a little bit about your background. I think it's fascinating. You've got a ton on the lending side. Now you're on the tech side. But tell our listeners about your background.
Yeah, so I started off my career really a small to medium-sized mortgage lender 20 years ago. And really in software development aspect. So graduated college, kind of was thrown into a small to medium-sized lender. Like most, wore a lot of different hats, from developing software to answering support tickets from sales and operations staff, to training, to even to recruiting and really selling our tech stack to new branches and LOs coming into the organization. So you could say I started out as kind of a technology purist, but I had a lot of great mentors and coaches early on in my career to basically ultimately make me understand, hey, Dan, you got to understand who your customer is, which, was really, the loan officers. And you got to get deep to really understanding the business problems so that ultimately, you're creating technology solutions that add value and ultimately solve, business problems. So over the years, first career was really understanding the business. Probably took me, honestly, about 3 to 5 years to really understand the depths of the business that I felt like I was producing valuable results. And I really, I would say I spent probably over 25% of my time really in the trenches with our sales force at the time. I would go out, visit their branches, see how they interact with customers. Obviously at the time, primarily face to face. And then I also would spend some time with them as they went out to, build the referral network, kind of jiving with real estate agents primarily, and really understanding how they were adding value to their business, ultimately to get, business in return from them. So spent a tremendous amount of my time in my career really learning from salespeople and getting super deep so that ultimately, I could come back and build some trends and then ultimately figure out what the right technology solutions were that we could deliver to add value to their business and help them, add value to their customers as well. So I would say my career has always been at the intersection of kind of lending and technology.
Okay.
And I don't know that I would, if you asked me in the first year, hey, do you think you're always going to be in this mortgage business? I don't know what my answer would be, but I would say I quickly really just grew a passion for it. Like I love this industry. And I think part of it is it's always changing, it's always evolving. And I love new challenges. I thrive on it. And I love getting in the trenches with salespeople and understanding where they're winning, where opportunities are, and ultimately how we can, add value to what they do through technology.
Well, I love it.
Yeah.
And, they always say once you get in the industry, you never leave. You may switch roles. You may be on the lending side. You may be on the vendor side, but you really never leave the industry. So I love hearing your story, and it is about value. And I think it's a perfect transition into then what are some of the challenges and what are some of the opportunities that you're seeing in today's mortgage market?
Yeah. So, listen, it's a challenging market, right? We came off of a major refi boom that we may never see, for the rest of our lives, Michael, but hopefully we do. But we have a massive drop in volume, primarily driven from a dramatic increase in interest rates. We have a tight inventory. So buyers, ultimately consumers. I think the last report from Fannie Mae was something like 70% of only 70% of consumers think it's a good time to buy. So super challenging market. Every deal matters, that's for sure. You can't let any consumers slip through the cracks. You really got to figure out how to optimize your top of the funnel, how you can look at, and evaluate your past customer database and really maximize the value to surface new opportunities there. But the ultimate story is every deal matters, and you got to make sure that you can optimize every opportunity that you have to serve your customers. So I would say, education and advice is number one. It's never been more important to really sit with consumers and educate them. All they're getting is this negativity from the media on,
Yep.
you got 6% interest rates now, and all this negativity. But really sitting down with potential buyers and really laying out, the guys that I'm seeing win, the advisors that I'm seeing win in this market are the ones that are willing to sit face to face, belly to belly, and really lay out strategies for consumers on why this is still, appealing to them. Whether that's, laying out a cost of waiting strategy that, appreciation is still, climbing, and time, and, if you look at historical value, real estate will always be a win when it comes to long-term wealth strategies. And, so if you look at a cost of waiting strategy and you say, hey, this is what happens if you buy today, even at a 6% interest rate, and how that asset's going to be appreciating over time, and compare that to a rent versus buy strategy for, maybe a first-time home buyer that's still renting. I mean, rents are going up through the roof. So
Yep.
the advisors that are winning in this market, I would say first and foremost, are the ones that can educate and advise at a very high, elevated, stature. And I would say that's first and foremost for sure.
Perfect. Great advice there. And I think, as we talk about it, you're right. We're coming off a major refi boom. And obviously, it's shifted to a purchase market. Talk to me about, I hear the term quite often, the race to the consumer now that we're in a purchase market. How do you take that phrase? And more importantly, what does that mean? And what are some of the things people can do about that to be successful?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're doing at Total Expert is we're having a heightened focus around customer intelligence. And really what customer intelligence is really surfacing and understanding your customer through the use of data and insight. So things like, let's just take a mortgage inquiry, right? Mortgage inquiry has, a massive amount of return on investment. We're actually doing some case studies right now at Total Expert to really surface what that is. But you're talking about, a consumer goes and gets their mortgage inquiry pulled at a different lender, being able to really surface that and tee up an opportunity to have that conversation at the right time. That consumer is going and shopping, whether that's a refinance or a purchase. So regardless of the market conditions, that's a high intent area that you need to be, having a conversation with that consumer and engaging that consumer at the right time. So it's a lot of what we're doing with Total Expert and around customer intelligence is making sure that as we bring these data and these insights that we can surface those opportunities to the originators. No longer do they have to comb through their database and have marketing admins spend time combing through the database for opportunities. We're going to bubble those up to the originators. And we're also going to drive automated marketing touch points that are super relevant, super personalized out to those consumers to ultimately generate inbound call volume to those sales operators.
So talk to me about that hyper personalization, right? I think one of the things that the mortgage industry has been historically bad at is we've been very focused as a transaction versus the relationship, right? Get the Smith file in, get the Smith file out, get the Hammond file in, get the Hammond file out. So how does this personalization, how does the use of this data and insights change and shift some of that focus from a transaction to a relationship?
Yeah, so I think it starts with how you're positioning the data. So I want to focus on two components there in your question. One is the human element. Total Expert believes the human element is here to stay. We don't necessarily believe in most cases that a full digital experience is necessarily the way to go. We believe in education and advice, and really it's about injecting the human element at the right time.
Yep.
And giving sales staff the intelligence through data and insights to have those meaningful conversations. So for example, let's just take a consumer now has a massive amount of equity in their home, and they hit a certain threshold that may be defined by a lender. So rather than a sales staff just saying, "Oh yeah, this consumer must have a bunch of equity because I got this alert in my system," it's not. It's taking it a step further and really giving them specific data points that they can have meaningful conversations with, such as, "Hey, I noticed your home has appreciated by $100,000 over the last several years since we last did your transaction. I now see that you have X amount of tappable equity in your home that we can leverage to help you build wealth over time." So it's really giving the sales teams that hyper-focused, personalized conversations that they can now look into a platform like Total Expert, and they look in the contact view in Total Expert, and they can see the exact profile of that consumer and where they can help that consumer build the next strategy to help them build wealth over time. As well as that then takes into the technology and Total Expert's intelligent journey automation that you can now send a personalized offer to that consumer. So everything is hyper personalized. The conversations that the salesperson is now able to have because of that enrichment of data, as well as your marketing now becomes a marketing powerhouse where you can start to deliver hyper relevant information to that consumer through automated marketing.
How does that apply to building referral networks?
Yeah, great question. So similar things. If we can, the golden goose in especially in distributed retail model is, can I give leads to my referral network? If you could start giving leads to your especially your real estate agents, borrowers that buyers that they wouldn't necessarily have had before, that's the golden goose. So the more intelligence we can bring to our distributed retail LOs that are using our platform, the more valuable they be. And the reality is that real estate agents typically don't do a fantastic job staying in front of their consumers long after that initial transaction. So if we can basically help build that bridge, help them stay top of mind through automating marketing, co-branding material that our platform powers, ultimately we can help the real estate agent not only stay top of mind in front of their consumers well after that initial transaction, but also using customer intelligence, we can ultimately help funnel leads to those real estate agents. And ultimately, the goal is obviously to get more and more penetration in those existing real estate agent networks to maximize the value for each agent that they do business with.
How does that apply to existing customers? Right, it's another area that historically loan officers, transaction in, transaction out. How does that apply to fostering and growing those current relationships that you already have?
Yeah, so are we talking referral partner net?
I would even say on the borrower side as well, not just.
Yeah. So listen, everybody's, we've used this notion of, I want customers for life, right? The goal is you're going to spend much more energy acquiring that customer the first time, but ultimately the Total Expert platform will ultimately allow you to build that initial customer profile, that initial data set on that customer, and ultimately through our customer intelligence engine, continue to enrich that and update that over time. So you always have, really a current view of what that customer's profile is, not just what you did 3 years ago when you completed that transaction, but continuous updating that profile so that you can continue to serve them and send them relevant content at the right time and surface the next opportunity. So it really gets to the point where that customer for life notion starts to become a reality when you can stay in contact with them and ultimately serve them to meet each individual customer's ultimate financial goals.
What do you think's in store for the rest of 2022 and 2023 as we start looking out? We're almost done with the third quarter. We're starting to look at what's going to happen in the market. What's some of the tech that is going to be, most sought after? What are some of the things you're seeing?
Yeah, so definitely, so I would say I'll start with the market. So this is my personal opinion. I'm certainly no economist. I listen to a lot of people like the great Barry Habib and others. I think all of what I'm hearing is the hopes that, come the spring market next year, we'll be much more normalized, probably back to a 2018, 2019, more normalized market. Hopefully, minimize some of this volatility that we're seeing right now. So that's as far as the market goes. As far as how that applies to the technology, we do see customer intelligence continue to scale. Look at more and more opportunities to bring in more data sets into our platform to really continue to enrich that customer profile so that we can stay hyper focused and hyper personalized on our delivery to our end consumers and add value there. We're also focusing a lot on making sure that we continue to optimize our journeys with all of our client and lender partners. So looking at things like, hey, what we're seeing in a purchase market is our journeys now need to be, have more touch points in a given time frame because it's taking buyers a longer time to find a home.
Right.
So optimizing journeys is a constant thing that we talk about with our partners, and how we can optimize journeys, how we can inject customer intelligence to make sure that we're surfacing opportunities and understanding customers' intent and their financial goals. So customer intelligence will continue to be a major focus for us in the years to come, and we'll continue to mature so that we can stay hyper relevant and hyper personalized.
Dan, you always have a wealth of knowledge and expertise. Thank you so much for sharing with our listeners today. I can't thank you enough for being a guest on this episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast.
Absolutely, Michael. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.